and we're away. So thank you very much for making time to watch this today. My aim, so the name of the webinar is Whole, How I Healed My Primal Wound. And my aim today is, if I succeed in a little way, I just help you make your trauma a little less traumatic. Okay. If I succeed in a bigger way, my aim for you is that I catalyze some healing within you. Okay. That's why I say I hope. I'm hoping to catalyze some healing in with you. Some healing with you. So a couple of years ago, I came up with this a little saying of mine, talking to one of my wife's best friends, and the saying was, "There's no such thing as a second-hand insight." So if I could bottle up, Diane wanted to bottle up some sun from North Carolina, and send it to the grey of the UK. So she was going to send the sunshine to us virtually. If I could condense my probably 13, 14 years of studying this stuff, and put it into an email and send it to you, or maybe more like a DNA result. If I could, I got my DNA results through from Ancestry. So if I could upload my learnings and my insights that I've had over the last 14 years to you, and you could just download them like something off the Matrix, right? And have some of the great healing experiences that I've done, I would do that. But I can't, because there's no such thing as a second-hand insight. We have to see new stuff for ourselves. We have to do we have to have our own insights. We have to have our own epiphanies. We have to have our own epiphanettes. So epiphanettes are like epiphanies. They're just a little bit smaller. Okay. So my aims, got 47 people on now. Little aim, make your trauma a little less traumatic. Big aim, catalyze some healings within you. So the structure for today, we're going to break it down into essentially 4 sections. The first section is going to be healing my primal wound. Then we have some questions after that. The next section is going to be, what is the primal wound? And it's basically my learnings distilled, my explorations distilled into some under some headings and explored. Then we get some time for questions after that. Then there's going to be a break, a comfort break. So if you need to get a cup of coffee, or you need to go to the loo or something, you can go to the loo. So we just start like a maybe 3-minute comfort break. Then we're going to do the third section, which is some other ways to understand trauma. So basically other metaphors other than the primal wound. Then we're going to have questions after that. And then the fourth section is going to be me asking you for some feed forward. Okay, so I don't want any feedback. I want to know what I can do better next time, and I want to know what sort of topics you would like me to cover in my next Zoom. Right, so I'm planning another Zoom. So essentially, I'm looking at this in 3 ways: healing my primal wound, healing your primal wound, and healing our primal wound. So that's the trajectory that I'm going to in my work in the adoption space: healing my primal wound, healing your primal wound, and healing our primal wound. And to do in that third section, I'm going to be doing some fundraising to create some resources to help other adoptees. So that's the third stage. So that's probably later on in this year and next year. So And also, just to remind you, there will be a recording of this, and you're all going to get a copy of the recording. I'm going to send that out to you, a link to you out on email. And when you get that, I'd love some more feed forward from you. So what you want to see in future Zooms. Okay. So the first section is healing my primal wound. So a little bit about me, and three key points in my life. So I'm 56 tomorrow. Okay, I was born 56 years ago in Wrexham. So my birth mother was from Blackpool, and I got and she'd been dating a guy for 5 months, and she told him that she was pregnant, and he didn't want to have anything to do with the unborn baby. So he signed. She made the adoption plan. He signed the papers to say, you know, he was okay with the adoption, all that sort of stuff. And my mum and dad collected me from Liverpool, home of the Beatles, February 1967. And February 1967. So, and they told me so young that I was adopted that I don't even remember when it was. My mum tells me it was the day that they went to collect my a sister. So they also adopted a little girl, not my biological family, but through the same adoption agency in Liverpool. So they told me just before I was 2, I think, something like that. And growing up, I didn't have any issues with being adopted, and I didn't have any. I had no challenge with that. I grew up in a happy, loving family. My dad was a little bit obsessed with work. I had some issues with bullying as I was growing up, but overall, okay, everything went okay. Happy, middle class, stable life, university, ups and downs with girlfriends, but nothing. Right. At the age of 40, on my 40th birthday, my mum and dad came around to take me and my wife out for dinner, and they brought a box of things that I had left behind in my bedroom, my childhood bedroom, 18 years or so ago. Thank you, Angie, for your birthday wishes. In that box was a teddy bear. So people have heard about this teddy bear. Some people have heard about him, maybe not seen him. So my wife and my dad told my wife that night that the teddy bear was from my birth mother. I didn't know that. My wife told me. And I thought my first reaction to that was one of curiosity. They've told me that I was adopted. Why didn't they tell me who bought the teddy bear for me? My mum reckons now that she did tell me who the teddy bear was from, but I don't remember that, right? So my first reaction was gentle curiosity. I wonder why. A couple of months later, I was telling this story to somebody about the teddy bear. And I had this volcano of anger erupted from nowhere for me, right? And a lot of profanities came out of mine, a lot of swearing came out of my wife, out of my mouth. I won't say them now, but essentially it was, she didn't love me enough to keep me. She gave me this consolation prize. And there were some swear words included in that. So I had never thought about my birth mother before. I'd never harbored any negative feeling towards her, and never felt unloved like this. So some people would say, well, that's me coming out of the fog. Some people would say, well, you know, the body keeps the score, as the book, the title of the book says, and what, you know, these beliefs, these feelings were suppressed, and then they came up to the fore. I really don't know. I don't know. I was going through a bit of a tricky time in my business. I kind of inherited my dad's obsession with business. So I was constantly worried about business. And I was in a low point in my business. My business wasn't doing great, and therefore I wasn't doing great. And that I think that was a bigger issue than this suppressed belief. But kind of who knows? I've spoken to a few therapists, and some of them, they're bright people, but they can link anything with anything. And I'm not sure whether that's me coming out to the front, but like it's not. I guess why I'm drawing that attention to that is because I think that I've clung on to some beliefs very, very hard, right? I've seen stuff as true, which is proven not to be true. So I believe in kind of like questioning everything in a good way. This one. So I had this eruption. She didn't love me enough to keep me. She gave me this teddy bear as a consolation prize. And as soon as those words came out of my mouth, and the venom's running through my body, and I'm kind of shaking, and it's a really visceral reaction. So the woman that I was talking to said, "I'm a mum, Simon." And I don't think it was quite like that. And with that, suddenly the volcano that had erupted stopped. But there was a little bit of white smoke still coming out the top of the volcano. And I thought, well, maybe adoption has messed me up and I'm not aware of it. That was kind of my thought. If I think back, and this is like 15 years ago. So then my business situation got worse, and then it got better. I got to some success in business, but it proved like a hollow victory. The business success didn't give me the happiness that I thought it was going to do. My expectations were completely wrong. So I then went looking forward, and I thought, well, if business hasn't made me happy, maybe adoption has made me unhappy, and I need to go on a bit of a journey to understand. And so that's when my journey started, like 15 years ago. Fast forward 7 and learning, going on courses, reading books, learning mindset stuff, and all sorts of different things. None of that actually in the adoption community, because I couldn't find anything that was really about, I couldn't find anything. I didn't go looking in the adoption community for answers. I went into the mindset world looking for answers, I think, in the kind of practical spirituality. 7 years later, I learned a load of stuff, and I was in a better place. And then I read the Primal Wound, and it took me down. The good news is, obviously, I'm here, I'm smiling. It didn't take me down that far. I actually bounced back at it, but we're going to get that to in a minute. I thought I had a problem. I was in this therapist chair, and she was asking me about my search for my birth mother, and I said that I'd got her name, and I hadn't taken any further than that. And she asked me some questions about why, and then suddenly the image of my birth mother outside the therapy room popped into my head. And my birth mother was making a face at me, not like a face like that. I thought she was in my view rejecting me again. She was rejecting me again. It was like a second rejection. And I went kind of like ice cold. My whole body froze. Yeah. And my whole body froze in fear. And I went ice cold. And then I flushed full red with kind of anger. And I'm not going to let this stuff, I'm not going to let this fear stop me. So I resumed my search for Patricia Joan Flower, a birth mother. So about a year later or so, I think it was, I got my adoption file. And in my adoption file, there's a letter from my birth mother to the social worker, right, at the age of 7, right? So some of you, I've read this to a few people, but not many. So I'm going to read it for you. So this is from Blackpool, where this is from where my birth mother lived with her parents, and it's dated Monday. I think that's probably the 7th of February, 1967. And she picked me up from the short-term foster care on the Friday morning, took me to the adoption agency on the Friday lunchtime, and that's where my mum and dad collected me from. So the letter is from my birth mother to the social worker, right? Dear Mrs. Bellis, thank you for everything concerning last Friday, so the Friday that she handed me over. And you'll see why I'm reading this letter now. I was going to buy a teddy bear for David, that's me. So you're talking to Simon Jonathan Ben, or you're watching Simon Jonathan Ben, but I was David Anthony Flower. Those are the names that she gave me. Right? I was going to buy a teddy bear for David in Liverpool on Friday, but because we met a lot of traffic, I didn't have time. I thought that the parents wouldn't mind if he had a little something from me, and was upset when I hadn't got him a teddy bear. Please, do you think it would be possible to buy him a little one for you, a little teddy bear, for you to send on to him? I don't know whether this is highly irregular or not, but I would like him to have a little something from me. Also, thinking I was giving him a teddy and didn't do so makes me awful sad when I see teddies on display, as I did in Lewis's on Saturday. So Lewis's is like a department store, like a Macy's or something like that in Liverpool. Please may I send you a teddy bear to give him. Sorry to trouble you. Yours faithfully, Patricia J. Flower. So as I read that letter, and I didn't read it with a lot of, I'm not very good at like dramatical stuff, right? I didn't read that with a lot of feeling, but I kind of detached from it. But as I read it, like 8 years ago, the tears just flooded down my face, and I'm getting goose pimples now, right? So yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. I don't know if you're feeling this or not, right? But the tears flooded down my face, and they were the tears that melted 20 seconds of my life. I harbored negative anger towards my birth mother and feelings of that she didn't think I was good enough. 20 seconds. But the hot tears melted the cold fear. And I felt her pain. I felt her powerlessness. I felt huge empathy for her. I actually felt that we were one. So some of you heard this metaphor. I came up with it a couple of months ago, right? So this time of year, my swimming pool is shut. So I go to another swimming pool, and it's a big pool. It's like 60 yards, 50 meters long. And they divide it into two. So there's this barrier that plastic, like hard duty, heavy duty, but you can walk on it, this barrier that raises up from the bottom of the pool to divide this one big pool into two little ones. And as I read that letter, it was like the collapsing of the wall between me and my birth mother. I felt we two became one. And what I know that is actually me becoming one with a lot more than just my birth mother. This is like a bath of love, right? This is a big swimming pool of love, and this is the, well, I have been to rugby matches, Scotland versus, my wife's Scottish, so we go to Scottish rugby matches, Scotland versus France, Scotland versus Italy, Scotland versus other countries. And when the national anthems get sung, although I'm not Scottish, everything, all thoughts kind of drop away, and my goose pimples come up like they're going now, and I feel at one with everybody in that crowd. And I've had that feeling. I've had that feeling at pop concerts as well. I went to see the Killers in Sheffield, and I felt as one. I felt that I was at one with everybody. So this is, I say this phrase quite a lot on the podcast, right? So the fact that we are one spiritual being having 7 billion human experiences. One spiritual being, one being. We are one shared being. Spirit isn't freaky deaky like Indian, Asian, Buddhist stuff. It's just who we are at one, and that's that sense of love. That's the healing space. That's the healing space that we touch. And at a more kind of prosaic and more everyday language, we say, I can't make it to your birthday party or whatever, but I'll be there in spirit. That's what the meaning is, the spiritual side. And the more I speak to all you lovely people that come on the podcast, and hopefully will come on the podcast in the future, the more I speak to you, and the more you echo this as well, that the healing space is that space of love, and it's that spiritual space. It's not psychological. It's deeper than that. We are not our feelings. We are not our thoughts. The answer is upstream in who we truly are. So that's my first section, healing my primal wound. So would anybody like to ask any questions? I forgot to ask you that. I forgot to ask you to type in questions as you went along. Sorry, I'm not great on the logistics on this, guys. So would anybody like to ask me any questions on kind of like that stuff and healing my primal wound? If there are questions, I'll take them. We'll take a couple of minutes on this. If not, then I'll move on to the second section. It's totally okay with me. Any questions? Have you met your mother yet? Thanks, Nadia. No, I haven't. She actually died in 2002. And people they always go, oh yeah, so sad. Thank you, Nadia. Yeah, people, that is the common reaction. And yes, it is sad. Yeah, it's totally sad. And yet, the feeling that I had with her, the feeling that I had writing that letter, I felt truly connected with her. And to I guess, I'm not a religious person, but I guess, that's what we say. People say, well, we'll see them in heaven. Wherever she is, wherever is a heavenly place, I've already felt connected with her. So the pain of her, the pain of her loss is not something that really gets me. Sabrina, okay, so sad. With your sister also being adopted, how does your adoption story impact your sibling relationship? I can't really answer that, Bethany, because I've got nothing to compare it against. I've only got one fellow adopted sister from a different thing. I would say that me and my that was I'm very close to my wife. I would say that me and my sister aren't close. She moved away to Switzerland when she was 17, and so she was not. I'd be 19 at that stage. So she's lived away for 36 years, and we weren't particularly close growing up. So, but I can't answer the question because I haven't got a thing. No closure for you. Well, not no closure with the death, in a conventional sense. But for me, the closure was in the letter, actually. Sabrina Clark, Sabrina, you're doing great. Usually speakers have helping fielding questions. Thank you. Did your mother have any siblings, Diane? Yes, she did, and it was her brother, my uncle, that confirmed that she had died. I confirmed the belief that I had that she died. She also had a middle sister as well. Next one. Did you find that once you knew you were angry, it had affected your past life decisions? Like things you felt guilty for, you could find reasons for them now that you could understand this inside anger? Great question, Joe. I think I've done some other learnings that had helped me before with that stuff. So I would say, not really. Nadia, do you have siblings? Well, I've answered that in another question. Are there any more questions? If not, I'll move on. We are scheduled for an hour, so I've done half an hour. I kind of hoped I might be a bit further on. So, but I think we're doing okay. And I can definitely take another couple of questions if they're short ones like that. Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you. Oh, by the way, the fact that you asked me some questions really touched me, because it shows me that you're engaged in it and you're asking questions. When there's no questions, I think, is there something I'm new to all this stuff. My main guy that I'm listening to at the moment, nothing to do with adoption, but everything to do with consciousness. He's been studying his stuff for 45 years and teaching it for 10. Thanks, Vin. Vin says I'm doing great. Oh, that's a direct message. So yeah, he's been doing his stuff 45 and teaching it 10. I've been doing my stuff. I've been doing my stuff maybe 15. Have I been teaching it? I haven't been teaching it. I've been doing some work with adoption agencies and adopted parents. Done maybe three webinars of my own outside the adoption space, but I'm finding my way here, right? So that's why I'm looking for your feed forward. Like, what do you want me to do? Concentrate on more better, maybe what I can tune better next time. Joe says it's like yoga, we teach to learn. Cool. Yeah. Yes, I'm trying yoga. I did try exercise classes, it didn't really work for me. I'm a swimmer and a walker. So we'll move on. Right. So the next section is, what is the primal wound? So for me, reading the book, if I look back on it now, the primal wound for me was, and it first struck me as a diagnosis. And actually, there was a lot of relief around that. I thought, I'm not going mad. And I think a lot of adoptees, feel that. So I watched the second Top Gun film a couple of months ago, and like when you've got, when he's up in the planes and they get missile locked, right? So they've got this heat-seeking missile, and the heat-seeking missile gets locked on to the enemy fighter that they're going to blow out of the sky. And when they're doing the practice training, they know that they've got a missile lock. We know that they've got a missile lock, right? That's what I think our minds are like. They're reason-seeking missiles. Reason-seeking missiles. We're looking for a peg to hang stuff on. And the diagnosis, and when we find that peg, there's a relief in the diagnosis. So the seeking stops, and we found an answer, and it's like, yeah, it's hallelujah, I found an answer. But for me, that kind of relief was short-lived, because I found it profoundly disempowering. I thought, well, I can't be unadopted. And I know some adoptees want to rescind their adoption. I don't. That idea never. It wasn't. My adoption experience was good. You know, the Primal Wound perhaps was more like a paper cut. If it was a wound, it was a paper cut, and for some adoptees, it's more like like it's a sharp bite. You know, mine's tiny, and it wasn't compounded by other stuff. So I know, you've got that the transracial adoption piece adds another layer of complexity. It's another layer of trauma, right? So if there's abuse that goes on within the family of origin before adoption, or the adoptive family after the adoption, that adds another layer of complexity, another trauma. So I think of it like a cake, right? So you've got the primal wound at the bottom, you've got things like transracial adoption, you've got international cultural adoption, those issues, and then you've got like the trauma like neglect and abuse and stuff like that. It all adds up. So my cake's fairly thin, and the slice, it's only got that one slice in it, and that slice is fairly thin. So that's why I say that for me, having spoken to other adoptees, my life has been a cakewalk. If I have been primarily wounded, it's a paper cut, not a sharp bite. So, and yeah, it was profoundly. I thought I was stuck with it, but as I didn't stay stuck with it. Something within me. I was talking to Vin about this this morning. We've got this curiosity, this curiosity of this life force or something. There's something within us that keeps us curious. It keeps us going. It keeps us, as he's saying, if you're in the SH1T, keep going, and you'll get to the answers. You're here because you're looking for answers, and those who seek answers find them. Those who don't, that some people just who numb, like I've done some numbing in my time and stuff, especially around concern about business and try to stuff negative stuff down. I will sorry, I've lost my chain of thought. I've done my searching. I've done my searching both for my adoptive parents. I found out where he is, and found out where my birth dad was on New Year's Day. I know where he is. I know he's in Lancaster, which is about 50 miles away. I haven't called him yet. I haven't contacted him yet, but maybe I will. Maybe I won't. It was never about him for me. It was always about my birth dad. Anyway. As I've done my exploration, as my curiosity has sent me deeper into understanding this stuff, understanding the primal wound, what I've realized is that for me, right, this is just my opinion. I'm only sharing my opinion, and I'm not, clearly I'm not a therapist. I'm just an adoptee sharing his experience and his learnings. Don't sue me, any American people. I know you want to. I was talking to Vin about this, that you're ahead of us in so many ways, Americans, and some of them are good and some of them not so good. and the one that you're ahead of is the litigation stuff. And so I have to put this disclaimer in, and I'm kind of joking with you, but I'm not. I am. Am I? I don't know. For me, being disconnected from our path, from ourselves, from our true selves, the spiritual essence, the essence of who we are, the consciousness, the life force, whatever you want to call it, that we all, every human being, is disconnected from who they truly are. And me as an adoptee, I've hung that on two things in my life: business and adoption. And I've been wrong to do that on both occasions. I am not my business, and I am not my trauma. I am not my trauma. We are not our trauma. Our feelings are not our beings. Rupert Spira is the man for this game. So for me, there was the Primal Wound. Reading the book was a diagnosis that I believe, my opinion, was a misdiagnosis. Maybe I just read the book wrong, but who knows? I'm going to come back to the answers when I've done this section. Thank you for them, listeners. So Primal Wound is a diagnosis that may prove to be a misdiagnosis. And I'm getting a bit hot just on me. Turn that on. The next thing to me is that the Primal Wound, before I realized it was a misdiagnosis, it kind of became a belief for me. I believed I was wounded, and that weighed me down. It weighed me down, and it got me. I've done a lot of work in the mindset area around beliefs. Well, kind of like, well, we're not born with them, are we? So they're not essential to us. They're not us, and it's really hard to see the picture as we're in the frame, as one of my favorite mentors talks about. It's hard to see the picture when we're in the frame. It's hard to see our own beliefs. It's far easier to see other people's beliefs. And like beliefs, what are they made of? So what's the primal wound made of? Maybe it's made of trauma. Well, what's trauma made of? Made of feelings, made of thoughts. Yeah, it's a thought, and it's like, but it's a thought. It's a thought that's that like we're born when we're kids. Our minds are quite fluid, aren't we? And then they become set. There's this word mindset. It's almost as if our beliefs, our thoughts are water, and our beliefs are like ice cubes. It's like there's a solidity to them, there's a solidity to them, and that solidity weighs us down. That's my take on it, right? And as I say, I've been looking at this stuff for 15 years. If I could, and I listen to maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours stuff while I'm walking the dog and driving the car, and so I don't know how many hours of learning I'm trying to compress into 1 hour, but it's a lot, right? And these thoughts are these thoughts true? So there's a professor of a Harvard professor of medical children's center or something. He says there's actually no clinical, no scientific proof, He makes a distinction between clinical proof and scientific proof. There's no scientific proof of the primal wound. So is the belief true? And I mean, my head's full of all sorts of rubbish. Absolutely, all sorts of rubbish. I know it. So what I'd actually like is, we've got one of those leaf blowers. Autumn time blows all the. I think I'd like a mind blower. Do you know what I mean? Like, just to blow away all these beliefs, because they're not true, and they're not who we are. You know, so we look at this. We can look, if we're looking now. One of the coaching models I use when I did a lot of work with kids in schools. So you look at your outcomes, and what drives your outcomes. Well, what you do, what drives what you achieve, what you do, what drives what you do, how you feel. What drives how you feel? Well, it's not the weather, despite the fact that we think it is. You know, feelings are an inside job. They come from our thoughts, and the central thought. And where do they come from? That central thought. You know, our identity. So, an adoptee the other day said, "We are our environment." We are, like, so, and I thought, you know, so we get this stuff wrong. I've had this stuff badly wrong in the past. So if the primal wound is a belief, my belief is that it's a false one. Okay. There's hope that one. So what is the primal wound? It's a diagnosis that's a misdiagnosis. It's a belief that's false. It's, you know, that liar in our head that tells us that we're not good enough. That pretty much everybody's got. It tells lies, and lies aren't the truth. We're looking for the truth of who we are. The truth will set us free, as they say. So the primal wound is, you know, and it's a metaphor, right? The primal wound is a metaphor. So metaphors make the invisible visible. They make the invisible visible, like the Invisible Man, right? So you've seen that. I hope you've seen that film. So the Invisible Man, you can't see him till he puts his clothes on, till he puts bandages. He can't put a shirt on his head. So he puts bandages around his head, and that makes him visible, and puts bandages on his hand, and that makes. So we're taking something like feelings that are abstract, and they're not visible. They're not. We can talk about them, but we can't put them into concrete terms. And the metaphors make them visible, and that's great because we can talk about it then. And if there wasn't for the primal wound, I wouldn't be able to throw more metaphors at you and question this metaphor. That's what I'm doing. I'm questioning. I've questioned the metaphor, and I've found it to be off. And I've got some better metaphors, I think, and more accurate, which I'm going to come to now. So the metaphor, and I've explained what a metaphor is with a metaphor, and also, this is maybe getting a bit too funky. I'm looking at time. It's a double-edged sword. So it has its good stuff and its bad, good side and the bad side. So it allows us to talk about it, but it makes something that is not a thing a thing. And when stuff is things, then they're more serious and we're more worried about it. Okay, so I'm going to look at, so that's my series. That's my second section. And I'm going to have a look at the questions. Do you have some? I have had Anna Maria. I have had adults read my children's book and have a similar reaction, not even realizing the trauma. Cool. Tina, when you describe your paper cut of adoption, am I wondering if you have suspected being in so many adoptee spaces, do you think adoptees have a higher tolerance for pain? I'm not sure because I only know my experience. Would I suspect it? Perhaps. Talking to some stuff from Vin, and some other guys that have been through shark bites and multiple layers of trauma. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's the thing when I think about transracial adoptees in the US, they're normally Black, adopted by white, you've got generational trauma as well. So, I've been on holiday in Africa. I've met people who were in the tribe that, I've been to hotels where the staff are Mandinka tribe, which was Alex Haley's book. Alex Haley was Mandinka tribe until, and they were slaves that the British people captured and shipped over to the colonies, right? So I'm aware of generational trauma. You've got other stuff like that. Anna Maria. So I don't know. Do adoptees have a higher tolerance and pain? I'm not sure. I only know my own experience. I suspect perhaps, yeah. Anna Maria, are you affirming that the pain of trauma lessened when the questions about your birth mother, father were revealed to you? Yes. So when I had that falling in love with my birth mother, that lessened my trauma. Yeah, that its insights lessen trauma. I'm trying to catalyze. The Thriving Adoptees podcast is me trying to capture the insights that people have had in adoption, in the hope that those insights will catalyze insights in the listeners. And I'm trying to do exactly the same with this webinar today. I'm trying to express my insights, capture my insights, share my insights in that hope that they catalyze them within you. Insights change the world. No. Darren says America has 70% of the attorneys in the world, right? Joe says, thank you, Darren. Not unsurprisingly. Joe, yeah, sounds sensible. Marianne, in terms of the book and healing, does it matter to us as adoptees that Nancy Verrier is not an adoptee but an adoptive parent? Yes, it should. And Vin's had answered that one. Is the lack of science proving a primal wound that is until recently is not being identified as a field of study? I don't know, Tina. Sorry, I'm not aware of this. I do think that the field of study should be who we are, not how we think, if that makes any difference. Katie said same. Yeah, answer that. I question it too. I'm curious how you believe that, Darren says, how you believe that the primal wound is a misdiagnosis. Well, I'm just explaining my belief. So I think it's a misdiagnosis because I think, my opinion, I think that Nancy is blaming what is human on adoption. Nadia, what would your advice be for adoptee where to start to heal the anger? Find somebody ahead of you on the journey and explore it with them. There does seem to be a relinquishment trauma. Yes, I felt it. Definitely, I felt it. But my trauma isn't who I am, so I'm focusing on who I am, not how I feel. Vin's saying that the parents don't agree with the book. Well, yeah, maybe. Darren saying our bodies remember it, our subconscious mind remembers it. That would seem to be the perceived wisdom. Joe goes into like, yeah, all this stuff, right, is treating something that is physical. We're looking at the physics rather than upstreams of the physics. And I believe that the answer is, in my opinion, that's where I found the most interesting stuff. So Joe says she loves the advice, find somebody ahead of you on the journey. Yeah, so there are a lot of mentors that I see, influencers who, well, I had one on the podcast who told me that she was starting therapy in a couple of weeks, and she'd been influencing for quite a while. And that, for me, that's kind of the wrong way round. You do your inner work first before you do your outer work, and carry on the inner work. It's like I continue to do 2 hours a day. And look at me, I'm running out of time. I was trying to do it in an hour. So I'm going to skip to the next bit, and then if anybody's got some more questions, hopefully we've answered the questions for section 2 along the way. Anna says, perhaps primal wound is not a forever state, but you have described the exact behaviors exhibited. Okay, so, all right, this is genius. I heard this from somebody else this morning. We're talking about the difference between the nature of our mind and our state of mind. The nature of our mind and the state of our mind. The nature of our state of mind goes up and down. I feel insecure, right? I'm feeling a bit insecure now. I didn't plan the time out, and I'm thinking, I've got 5 minutes left. I'm feeling I'm feeling a bit hot because I've got 2 jobs, and I'm feeling a bit, you know, my mind isn't bingo. I'm thinking, I'm rushing answer some of these questions. So my state of mind goes up and down. Our level of consciousness goes up and down. Great book on this is Power versus Force by David Hawkins. Scale of Human Consciousness. Huge book. Right? Consciousness for me is where it's at. Fred, believe that trauma is a response to the wound. Yeah. Real question is how to minimize negative impacts from scared reactions. Fred, that wouldn't be my question. My question would be, my question is always to go upstream. So I'm looking upstream from behaviors to feelings to thoughts to identity, and understanding consciousness, like understanding who we truly are. And it's a bit way out. We live in a world that's dominated by psychology rather than consciousness. So, you know, we live in a world that's where the, you know, scientific proof is the proof, and the material paradigm rather than idealism or non-duality or consciousness. We're focused. That's the world, and I was in that. I studied it a lot in that world as well, and I found the world of consciousness more healing for me than the world of psychology. Just my experience. And I've given you the most visceral moments that other people can understand today. Not all the huge learnings, you know, like I fill a book of these. I write stuff down from my learnings. I do one of these every couple of months or so, and these mean something to me, but they don't mean anything to anybody. I've tried it and they don't. I'm going for the more visceral stuff. Tina says maybe we can have an after chat, not recorded. Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. So I'm going to do. You're doing a terrific job, says Joe. Some chocolate for your state of mind. Thank you. I'm grateful for your work. Thank you, Joe. So I'm going to go into the third section now, and I'm not going to rush this. So if you need to go, then go. And I'm going to talk about 10 minutes about this, and you're going to get the recording anyway. So if you need to go, then go, and then just when you get the recording, you can listen to the whole thing again. Which I would actually recommend. Or if you don't want to do that, you just skip to 60 minutes and you'll get the last 10 minutes of me when I'm done. Because I'm going to look at some metaphors that I've come up with. Now, some of you will have heard these metaphors before, but not in as much detail and depth. So this is my metaphor for trauma, because my trauma came out as anger. Clenched fist. Okay. It's now, and the clenched fist, we do damage to people with clenched fists, right? I've been in fights as a kid, you know. We didn't, at our school, we didn't have playtime supervisors like they do now that stop kids fighting. The kids, the boys, it was an all boys school, and we just sorted stuff out with our fists. Different, you know, as I say, I'm 56 tomorrow, so different days, very different to today's days. So, but you know, the clenched fist, that's not the natural position of the hand, is it? The natural position of the hand is open. So when I open my fingers, unclench my fists, bye-bye. This is a glass diamond from Amazon. It was £7. It's about $7 at the moment because our currency is on. Right? So that's who we are, in my opinion. So if you take nothing else from today, and I hope you've got loads, I'd like to ask you a question. Is trauma a veil or a wound? Is trauma a veil or a wound? I'm slowing things down now on purpose, right? So does trauma hide who we are? Right. So this is the trauma. I'm taking my anger out with my fists, and I'm as a kid, and but I can't, you know, I can't hit my birth mother. She's not with me. So, the anger towards her, yeah. So this is me. This is you. This is the spiritual essence of who we are. This is the trauma. Now, and it veils, in my opinion, it veils. It veils who we are. It veils. It hides who we are. We can't see it. Nobody's pointed it out to us. And when they did point it out to us, we didn't believe them. Oh, Simon, you're perfect. Da, 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 da. Well, no, I don't agree with you. So just like it's our brains have got bouncers on the prefrontal cortex. If you say something to me that I don't believe, it just bounces off me. I don't believe it. I'm not going to take it in. So and we've seen some of that in there. We've seen some of that today. So this is who we truly are, right? As I say, 7 months. Now, this is me as a little kid, right? This is me as a slightly bigger one. My mum wants this back. Now, there's a difference in value between these things. You know, if they were real diamonds, you know, but the difference between us as human beings is that you know, this has a finite value that goes up and down. Your value is infinite. My value is infinite. Okay. Vladimir Putin's value is infinite. He's a complete nutter, but you know what happened to him, right? Why is he such a nutter? And he's the same as us. It pains me to say it, but he's the same as us underneath his trauma, underneath his behavior, underneath his feelings, underneath his thoughts. And I clearly don't like the guy, but you know, we all have infinite value, right? The other thing about a diamond. Okay, so the trauma, my fist, I cannot, with this fist, I cannot damage this piece of glass. My fist it just can't do it. No way. Not in a much. Glass is the toughest, one of the toughest substances known to humans, right? I can't crush it. I can't damage it. I can only hide it. I can't damage it. And I meant to get a knife, right? If this pen was a knife, could I cut the diamond? Could I cut the glass? No chance. No cut. There's no cut. We cannot cut who we truly are. And here's the thing: no cut, no wound. No cut, no wound. I'm jumping straight ahead to the end of that. Right? No cut. No blood transfusion. No stitches. No need even to wash the wound. No need to guard against gangrene, right? No need to put antiseptic on it to ward against infection. No need to bandage it. No need for band-aids, plasters, whatever you call them in your part of the world. No need for bandages, band-aids, or plasters, sticking plasters, healing plasters. None. Because the diamond, which is you, is unwoundable. I have felt wounded. You have felt wounded. I'm shaking with the profundity of this, hoping that I'm not overcooking it. You have felt wounded, but you have not been wounded, because we are not our feelings. We are not our trauma. Find somebody, if this isn't making sense to you, find somebody. This one of my mentors does this all the time. I think it's so powerful. Find somebody that's better at expressing it. If you don't think that I'm talking the truth, I know a guy who is talking the truth. He's called Rupert Spira. Rupert, Rupert, Spira, Spira, right? He's the guy. He's the guy that's been studying stuff, consciousness, who we truly are, for 45 years. He's the stuff that's been talking about for 10 years. What I do is I take all the stuff in from all the different people, my different mentors, and I wrap it up into a bow that is adoption specific, and tailor everything to adoptees. But I'm a total amateur at this. He is just like brilliant. So if this isn't making sense to you, or you think, kind of making some sense, but Simon's not expressing it correctly, check out Rupert Spira. So my second metaphor, I'm not a very good driver. And a few years ago, I wrote off a Lotus, a little sports car. I never took it out in the winter because you didn't want to get it dirty, and it wasn't very good in the wet and ice and stuff like that. So it stayed for the winter. It stayed at my friend's warehouse, because we haven't got a garage, under a cover, keeping it nice and warm. I collected it on Easter Saturday after a Good Friday lads' lunch, and we had a lot of wine and food, and I wasn't in a great space. The following morning, I went to get it for lunchtime, and I took it down a road that I don't really know, and I went too fast, and I took off, like over this little hump, and ran through, and the car luckily went straight through this field. The car disintegrated. I was okay. But even if I hadn't been okay, the space in the car was unwounded. The space in the car. So I say spirit, right? Spirit. The closest thing that we can get to spirit is space. It's that essence of who we are. And the scientists say this, right? They keep on going down, don't they, into the with their microscopes, and they still can't, they still keep on finding more and more space within the atoms, the subatoms, the quarks and stuff like that. There's nothing there. Like, don't the scientists say that 97% of the universe is still black space? So space on the outside, space on the inside. And this is another reason why I believe the body keeps the score isn't quite there, is because every cell in our body is replaced every 7 years. So the body keeps the score. The body may keep the score, but we are not our body. And we're getting a bit esoteric here. So I'll give you one final insight into why the body isn't. We are not our bodies, because I believe, until very recently, I'm Simon, I'm this body, and inside this body there's this mind, and inside this mind there's this brain, inside the brain there's a mind, right? So this is called the materialistic paradigm, right? But I saw my father-in-law's body about 7 years ago. He died, and he wasn't there. The animating life force, the spirit, the consciousness that he was, the thing that made Bill wasn't there. His spirit was long gone, and that spirit is more like space than things. So getting a bit esoteric there, and I thought, well, I've got two more metaphors for you, which are really quick. And you'll like this one because, I like this one because people talk about coming out of the fog, right? Well, what can you see in the fog? You can see the lighthouse. So we're the lighthouse, not the fog. So we don't need to be enlightened, because we are light. We are light and darkened. We are light and darkened. We are, as I say, the diamond is in the light now, okay, and then in my hand it's in the dark. So the lightness that we are is endarkened. And finally, one from so that's one I made up a couple of days ago, and this one. And have fun with play with this. If you don't like my metaphor, come on, another one. Okay, well, there's another one for Rupert Spira. Okay, this is like a Buddhist one. He's just taking it from somebody else, I think. We think that we're the clouds. The clouds are our feelings, are our thoughts. We're the sky. So we're the sky on which our thoughts appear. So sometimes the day is completely overcast, like it was in Milwaukee earlier, right? The sky is completely overcast, and we think, I can't see any sky. Then there's a little bit of blue sky, and we think that, yeah, that's our little glimpse of who we are. So I'm going to go, Alison, thanks for sending this out. Can we share the recording out to others? Yes. And I'm probably going to make it into a podcast as well. Dan Gray, you have such amazing insights, very thought-provoking. Yeah, great, thank you, Dan. Is there a transcript available? Yes, I could probably get one of those done. Yeah, thank you. Fred, trauma is a response to a wound. Joe, diamond come from being crushed, or else you would just be coal. So we must thank our trauma. Lol. So there's limitations to every metaphor, definitely. Tim Shop, that's deep, Simon. Yes, intentionally, Tim. That's where all the treasure is. Marianne, it's helpful you've given a new perspective, food for thought. The diamond metaphor is useful. We are rid of the primal wound if it doesn't exist. Oh, yes, I like that, Marianne. Fred Nicora, would suggest we are a result of genetics and experiences. Yeah, well, our body is. But I've kind of like, maybe I've gone into that. I think we're we're at different, it's like who we are. So are we our behavior? Are we our body? Are we our behavior? Are we our thoughts? Are we our feelings? Are we all that? So we could say, well, we're all of those things, or we're one of those things. It's like it depends on how we identify what we are. So I'm looking at I am. I am that I am is a religious thing. I am that I am that I am. Right. So I am. So 1 minute I am insecure. The next minute I am secure. 1 minute I am confident. The next minute I am worried. I'm looking at not the end of the sentence. I am looking at the start of the sentence, that I am bit. And as far as Rupert Spira does some great stuff in terms of looking at this body stuff. So thanks, Fred. Love the sky cloud metaphor. That's one of Rupert's. Marianne says, my memoir theme is perceived wound of a complex adoption loss. Thanks, Sam. Cool. Agreed. So I think that's us done. So I wasn't a quote. I thought I didn't have enough to say. So I've had too much to say. So I'm going to end the recording now, unless anybody's got any last questions, and then I'm going to stay on for a chat for 10 minutes, and then we'll see if anything goes. So Fred says this was awesome. Thank you, Fred. I'm delighted that you said it was awesome, because I've just been slightly disagreeing with you, and isn't it great that we can have different levels? You know, like it's, yeah. Oh, my heart's really jumping out of its skin here, because how often is it that, you know, disagreements stop debate? You know, how often do we get so annoyed with the other person that we can't continuing the conversation? So Fred, that comment really lands for me. So thank you for saying that, and I'm loving the hair, mate. Joe says we are spiritual beings having a human experience is truth. Oh, okay, yes, spiritual bypass. So but being spiritual risk pushing away spiritual gaslighting, things that are real to the experience. Your thoughts are not you, but they tell you about your experience. Primal wound or original wound, or point of learning, not to pain and stasis. I love this talk. Great. So yeah. Spiritual, kind of like this, it's called spiritual, what's it called? Yeah, spiritual gaslighting, spiritual, I said it once, bypass. It means kind of pretending everything is okay. So in my description of the podcast, I still say that I still struggle. Okay, so I struggle. I get impatient with people. I feel insecure. So no way perfect. Thank you, Lisa. That ability to disagree is awesome, brother. Thanks, Fred. So yeah, I still have shit. Sorry, I was supposed to say it's SH1T, not supposed to lie. Lie, supposed to swear. So. And I kind of like I bounce my negative feelings matter less to me. I thought about saying, you know, what is healing to me? What is healing is not being as bothered by the negative feelings that I have. That's what healing is. Not being as bothered. It's not about not feeling insecure or not feeling negative. It's being less bothered. So people say that what we resist persists. So what we fight against stays on. The civil war in our heads that in the uncivil war, it continues when what we want is peace. But what we don't want to spiritually bypass peace. That's not one I'm advocating. And we're at the edges of my ability to explain that properly. So yeah, look at spiritual bypass. Totally agree, Joe. Thank you for that. Maybe I could do that next time. So let's stop the recording there, and people can come on and have chats. Okay. Thank you, podcast listeners, or thank you, recording listeners. We're just going to have a chat with the group. Thanks.